Amma ba'd. Brothers and sisters, committed Muslims, Allah Jalla wa Ala says, وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا فإن بغت إحداهما على الأخرى فقاتلوا التي تبغي حتى تفيء إلى أمر الله فإن فاءت فأصلحوا بينهم بالعدل وأقسطوا إن الله يحب المقسطين إنما المؤمنون إخوة فاصلحوا بين أخويكم واتقوا الله لعلكم ترحمون. This ayah is very relevant to the segment of history that we are considering in this khutbah today. We spoke about the diffusion of the military conflict at Siffin with the agreement of both sides to what is called at-tahkim, and that means to solve the differences through discussions and negotiations and an arbitration process. Before we pick up the following details, the details that followed this or accompanied it, the meaning of the ayah, وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا. And if there are two camps of committed Muslims who fight each other, then your first choice is to try to reconcile them. The first priority is to try to diffuse the combat readiness and the warfare intentions on both sides. وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا فَإِن بَغَتْ إِحْدَاهُمَا عَلَى الْأُخْرَى فَقَاتِلُوا الَّتِي تَبْغِي حَتَّى تَفِيءَ إِلَى أَمْرِ اللَّهِ. The ayah says, but if one of these camps, one of these sides of committed Muslims transgresses or trespasses or violates its boundaries of legality and morality by aggressing against the other camp of committed Muslims, then you fight the aggressive, or you fight the party that took the law into its own hands until it reverts to the command of Allah. If it does revert to the command of Allah, at that time you reconcile these two sides. with justice and with institutionalized justice. For Allah is dear to those who are keen on institutional justice. For indeed committed Muslims are brethren of each other. So it is very natural to reconcile them to each other. And maybe in this process you will attain to the mercy of Allah. This is the meaning of these ayat. Now, what we have here in the context that we are in, we are speaking about ourselves over 1,350 years ago, almost 1,400 years ago. This is ourselves. We were at war. And this war was the second time that committed Muslims go to war with each other. Remember, during the time of Allah's Prophet, we don't know of a war in which committed Muslims were fighting committed Muslims. It doesn't appear in the seerah. It's not spoken about in Islamic history books. It doesn't exist. But the ayat of Allah, the book of Allah, came to deal with what the Muslims may do to themselves. And in this instance, there are clear instructions from Allah on how to behave when Muslims are at war with each other, when committed Muslims. Note the wording of the ayah, وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا, not مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. So, in the course of human nature, in the course of human events, the ayah is telling us that it is possible that something like this may happen. So what happened was not out of the extraordinary, it was out of something that may occur. So the Muslims, the committed Muslims, the first time they went to war was at Al-Jamal. The second time they went to war was here at Siffin. This is something like an all-out war. And when the camp of the Al-Fi'a Al-Baghiya, the aggressive party, realized that it was losing this war, it reverted to a trick. This was not done in sincerity. And I know some Muslims may feel upset that we are trying to describe this matter in such a way, but we have to be honest to ourselves. We have to be honest and accurate to the events that took place. The losing side in the war at Siffin raised the masahif, the copies, the pages of the Quran on their swords or their spears. And they said, we want now to end this war by or through negotiations.